Hey everyone, this is Don. Can you guys all hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, just let me know when you guys want me to start. Okay.
Sure.
Do you do you want me to just kick it off, or do you think other people are coming?
I'm not 100% sure about if other people are coming. I know typically they normally start like around 5 minutes after, so
Okay, I'll give it another 2 minutes and then I'll go ahead and get started.
okay.
Hey guys, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. This is not a big group here, so I'm hoping we can make it really interactive. Chastity and Joe Green, since it's just us, do you guys want to go take off mute and then the three of us will just treat this as a conversation?
Sure.
Are you there? So Chastity, it might just be you and me. Joe, if you can hear us, just follow along. And so, am I pronouncing that right, Chastity?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna go ahead and do a screen share and pop up a PowerPoint presentation for you. And I'm really gonna,
Okay.
since it's us two, I'm gonna just kind of drill it down. Um, Let me know if can you see me? Can you see the screen?
Yes, I can see this. Yes.
Cool. So I want to start with you're here for for real estate taxes, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I'm gonna go into like the general rules of like what the real estate taxes are, and then from there, like if you have any specific questions, like don't be shy, just let me know. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I want to start here with Cook County real estate taxes, right?
Hmm.
So do you know what the equation is to get to real estate taxes?
No, not exactly. I'm fairly a new agent.
Cool. Well, listen, you're going to be like the expert at it, right? So this is the equation right here. The taxes equal the assessed value times the state equalization times the village tax rate. So um, there are these three factors that create the taxes, right? And have you ever heard
Hmm.
anyone say, hey, like taxes are about 2% of the purchase price?
Yes.
Okay, the reason they say that, I'm going to walk you through the equation here. So, real estate taxes equals the assessed value times the equalization rate times the tax rate. So let's say we're in Chicago. So Chicago, the tax rate is about 7%. The state equalization is 2.9. And the assessed value is the fair market value. That's what the treasurer thinks that the property is worth,
Mhm.
times 10%. If you were to take 7% times 2.9% times 10%, I'm going to do it right now. So
Mhm.
7 times 2.9 equals, it's going to be this. And then you multiply that by 10%, you get the fair market value times 0.0203. So that's what the taxes equal. So do you see how it's like the contract price or the purchase price? That's fair market value. And do you see how this
Mhm.
0.0203, that's actually 2%? Do you see how that works?
Okay.
So that's
Yes.
when you hear us say stuff like, hey, 2% of the purchase price, like taxes are generally 2% of the purchase price. In a perfect world, this is how you get there. Okay. So now,
Oh, okay. I see.
do you see how that works? So now we're going to
Yes.
jump back here. In addition, there's all these exemptions that you get to take, right? And here,
Mhm.
I'll send you this PowerPoint, and if you really want to break down like what the three factors are, this is what it is. But at the end of the day, it's 2% of the purchase price. Have you ever used? Have you ever done a contract before? It's just us, so no need to be shy. Have you written a contract before?
Yeah, on the buy side only.
Which contract did you use?
The 7.0 contract.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I'm a board member of Arela, and we are the drafters of the 7.0 contract, right? So
Okay.
this is the contract that you use, correct?
Yes, and I just put my email address in the chat
Sweet.
also.
I'll email you all this stuff later, okay?
Okay. Yes, that's the one that I use.
Beautiful. So normally, normally you would be here at paragraph 9, and you would write in the general real estate taxes. And if we're let's just pretend we're in Chicago here.
Mhm.
Normally this number is 110%. Like you anticipate a 10% increase. Now if obviously with COVID, the city has stated that they anticipate on increasing the real estate taxes more. So we don't know where that's going to end up. But, generally speaking, on non-reassessment years, 110 is a pretty safe number. But then what we're
If
going to,
it's
yeah, keep.
if we put 105, is that not correct or
So
should it roughly? Mhm.
105 is probably standard in the suburbs. Like if you do 110 in the suburbs, they'll really push back. But most likely at a minimum, if it were me, I would say 110 in this space.
For the city, because the contract that I did, it was in Romeoville, so the suburbs. Yeah, so yeah,
Yeah.
actually,
105
okay,
in Romeoville is fair.
got it. Okay,
But there's something I want you to read for me. You can read my screen, right?
yes.
Do me a favor. Can you read read the part that I highlighted?
It says, in the event the real estate is improved but not has been previously taxed for the entire year as currently improved, the sum of 3% of the purchase price shall be deposited in escrow with the title company with the cost of the escrow.
Okay, beautiful. So what this says is if it's new construction property, if first of all, if it's new construction property, you probably shouldn't use this contract. However,
Okay.
if you do use this contract, you need to know that in addition to that credit that you read above, the seller has to escrow 3% of the purchase price for a potential reproration agreement. So that's the 7.0. Now, if we look at the car has almost the exact same thing. Can you see where I highlighted?
Yes.
But instead of 3%, it says 2%. You see that? It says
Yes.
2%. So that's the fourth page of the car contract, paragraph A. Okay?
Okay.
So that's if it's new construction. So step one, if it's new construction, you probably shouldn't use these contracts. But if you guys should really be using like the standard templates that they have here.
Mm-hmm.
But just keep in the back of your head, if you're representing like a small flipper or a small developer and you guys use these contracts, the contracts call for an additional escrow. Okay. You follow that?
Okay. Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay. So you got the general equation here, right?
Mm-hmm.
The next step, when you're in Chicago, you have to keep in mind that every 3 years they're going to do a reassessment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Normally we ask for 105 or 110%, but if you're doing this in a reassessment year, this is an older, if you're doing this in a reassessment year, you need to do kind of a special equation. Like the last one was 2018, so that means the next reassessment is going to be 2021. So next year, when you start putting people under contract, you should
Mm-hmm.
really be, doing these as like a TBD, like a to be determined by the attorney, and your
Okay.
attorney should be checking out what the new assessed value is.
Got it. Okay.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other thing, there's a lot of older people out there who are starting to sell property, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everybody who lives there, they get the standard homeowners exemption. But one thing
Yes.
we're seeing a lot of, because the silver tsunami is coming, we're seeing a lot of seniors go out and they're starting to sell their place, and they're literally paying zero taxes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you see people with a senior freeze or senior exemption, um, you really got to do you got to do due diligence before you buy that place to make sure that those exemptions are going to stay in place.
Okay.
Okay.
So how would that work if someone who's not a senior is purchasing that home?
Good
Does the
question.
senior exemptions go away, or how would that work?
Good question. So in theory, so I'm going to give you theory and practice, right?
Mhm.
So let's go over here. Okay. Let's say you were buying something in here's 2019 and today is 2020, right? Because this happens a lot, right? You're
Mhm.
buying it here. This is when you're buying it, right? And real estate taxes are 1 year in arrears. So
Right.
when you get the tax bill in 2020, right, it's actually for 2019, right?
19. Right.
But
Mhm.
what the heck do you do if it's a zero tax bill, right? Because they're getting all these senior exemptions. And let's say this is a young family, okay,
Mhm.
who won't qualify. So, in theory, according to the county, that if they properly file, if the seller properly files um, the exemption paperwork, it will carry over, right? And these guys, just for 2020, will get the zero tax bill. And then they'll get their own real tax bill. The taxes will go up significantly in 2021, right? Now, that's in theory, so
Right.
as they file all the paperwork. But you can't, the county is crazy working with these people. Like, and you don't want to have to track them down. What I do when I represent buyers, I say, hey, listen, you go file the paperwork and promise me that we're going to get it. But you got to put money in escrow just in case the county fights us, right? Because if the county, for some reason, what if they claim they lost the paperwork or something was wrong with the filing? You don't want to have to go chase this person. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I always force an escrow when I see this happen.
I wanted to ask, as we're going through the process as
Yep,
being a realtor, do we have access to see if the taxes for this senior in 2019 was properly
absolutely.
filed?
Absolutely. So, or wait, so step one, let's say you're a realtor and you want to see what the tax bill is.
Mhm.
If you want to see what the tax bill is, you got to go to the treasurer, right?
Mhm.
If you want to see the new assessed value, like you want to see if the value is going up or not,
Uh-huh.
you need to go to the assessors, the Cook County assessor. They're two different websites. This will show you what the tax bill is, and this will show you what they're being taxed at as a value plus exemptions, right?
Okay.
Now, if you want to know if the paperwork has been filed, there's no way to look to see that the paperwork is filed. You
Mm-hmm.
have to ask the seller for like a stamped copy of what they filed.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, so there's no place to look online and make sure that they did it.
Got it. Okay.
Cool. Follow that?
Yes.
Okay. Jump back over here. Okay. So you got all these exemptions. And again, if you're, if you really want to understand how the exemptions apply, I don't want to bore you too much. Here are slides that will kind of walk you through each exemption and how it works. Okay.
Hey, Don,
Okay.
this is Joe Green.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
What's up, buddy?
Not too much. Hey, Chastity, you're asking some amazing questions, especially if you
Thank
said
you.
you're a new agent. So I put in the chat box there that, when I represent a buyer, I will put in 110%. And if, it doesn't get caught or challenged, great. If when I represent a seller, I try to do 105%. And worst case, I say TBD, to be determined by attorneys during attorney review.
Okay.
That's a very good way to do it. Especially when you get these reassessment years, like this year, that works. That in Chicago, that 105, 110, it works here. But next year in 2021, that's a reassessment year. I would always put TBD because it forces the attorneys to go check the assessed value.
Got it. Okay.
And it's the fair thing to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Doing that, the assessed value method is the fair thing to do. Because if the values jump up dramatically, 110 won't cut it. Like for example, when they were doing, 2019 was the New Trier School District reassessment. We were seeing taxes, assessed values like doubling, right? And, so if the assessed value doubles, the taxes are going to double. And if the taxes double, 105 just won't cut it.
Okay.
Got it?
Yes.
Hey, Joe.
Yes, sir.
Hey, so I'm not checking because I'm doing a screen share, I'm not checking the chat box.
Got it.
Since there's just us here, I'd love it if we could just do super interactive. So
yeah, for sure.
It's just us. Do you have any other questions or anything like that before I keep going?
Not on this. I do see that there's some things there on the disabled veterans, and I do my fair share of VA buyer clients, and some of them do have some disability where they're like, oh, I'm going to be tax exempt. I'm like, ooh,
well,
great, but just double check that.
That disabled veteran exemption is extremely aggressive. Like it's a big discount. Like I just did one where they had a mild disability and it wiped out like half of their taxes. Yeah. So, if you rep some veterans, I do a lot of VA housing as well. If you rep these guys, just let them know like, hey man, if you qualify for any disabilities, that is a really aggressive exemption. Okay. So, Cassidy, if you're bored, this is a great way to go look up the exemptions right here. This is the county assessor. The assessors will let you know. The assessors will let you know, hey, these are going to be the exemptions that are being taken, and this is the value of the property.
Got it. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So one of the things I wanted to take time with, because I've noticed a lot of people have confusion with this, is the new construction problem, right? So Joe, you have some more experience in Chastity here. So can I use you as the example?
Sure, absolutely.
So you've done a new construction condo before?
Yes, I have.
So here's the problem with the new construction condo stuff. So let me pull this up.
And you are correct. Usually with new construction, the developer has their own contract, so we would typically not be using the CAR or the multi-board.
Yeah, but I bring that up to the two of you just in case you see it. Like if you're representing like um, a newer developer who doesn't have their own one, they might just use that. Okay. So here's the thing when it comes to new construction on condos. So let's just say new construction condo, right? So this happens so much that I just want to really simplify this for everybody on this call. So let's pretend this is when you do the closing, 2020. It's actually for the 2019 tax bill, right? Well, when the closing occurs, for tax savings purposes, the deck is recorded generally speaking, 1 day prior to close, right? The declaration is the thing that creates the condo. When the deck is recorded, a condo is created. And most new construction's attorneys, they do it 1 day prior. Now, when you record that, all of a sudden, they're recognizing that they're separate condos, right? So when you get the tax bill here, it's still undivided. It's not the condos, it's the big building, right?
Yep.
And the tax bill is for 2020. You don't actually get your own tax bill until 2022. That's when the individual condo gets its own PIN with a tax bill. Because this is still based off of that. The PIN exists at this point, right? But it's a zero tax bill. It's zero because, we're 1 year in arrears. So you don't actually get to do your own thing until 2022. So it kind of becomes a mess here, right? With these 2 years, the first 2 years, it's kind of a mess because you're dealing with an undivided PIN number. Now, Joe, let me ask you, in your new constructions, when you're dealing with condos, do you normally get a tax credit?
Good question. We do, but it's based off of the prior tax, whatever that was, land value or whatever that prior property tax bill was.
Got it. So what most attorneys do, and this is a little crazy, right? So here's the condo PIN, and I'll send this to you guys. Oh, I'll send this to you guys so you have it, right? Got a little typo in there. Just changed it. This is the timeline that I just showed you. But one of the things that they do here, and this is the big heads up that I want you to know about. Most new construction people, attorneys, what they do is they require that the buyer pay the seller, not the seller pay the buyer. So Joe, why do you think new construction people make the buyer pay the seller?
I have to think about that.
Let's pretend we're neighbors.
Yep.
You and me, I bought unit 1 and you bought unit 2, right?
Right.
If I file for divorce or bankruptcy, and I don't pay the taxes, what happens to you?
I'm responsible for it.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So a lot of the new developer attorneys got wise to this. And we said the seller is going to collect 2% from each buyer and put it into escrow.
Yep. I do recall that.
I'm sorry?
I do recall that.
And when the actual tax bill comes out, they do a reproration, and they do that because no one buyer can destroy everyone. So they take the money from all the buyers, right? And this is a big swing. Lenders don't really understand it. Buyers show up and they say, why the hell am I giving you a credit? You should be giving me a credit. It's 1 year in arrears. Well, normally that would be true. But with new construction condos, the seller wants to collect the 2% because, Joe, you and I are neighbors, right?
Right?
You don't want my bankruptcy to force your bill, would you?
No, because at this time we're one PIN number still.
Exactly, exactly. I appreciate that you caught that. So just be very cognizant when the two of you guys are doing new construction condos, and give the buyer a heads up when you look at the reproration agreement. The buyer might have to come up with 2% at closing. And then you have, if there's a lender involved, you got to tell the lender, hey, don't escrow money because you'll be double dipping. The lender should only do like a token $50 a month to keep the escrow open, but the lender should not be taking money because the seller is holding 2% towards taxes.
Got it.
You follow that, Joe?
Yep.
So whenever you're doing these new construction condos with your clients, look at the reproration agreement. They're normally really clear. If they require 2%, give your buyer a heads up and tell the lender, because that it's a crushing closing cost to a lot of people. They get hit with this 2%, and if the lender doesn't know about it, and 99% of lenders don't know about it, then they start escrowing 2%. So the buyer comes up with 4% at closing. Now the buyer will eventually get the money back that they don't owe, but it's very burdensome for people to have to pay this at closing. Makes sense, everyone?
Yes.
Yeah. Especially if you're buying a new construction in the city of Chicago, that could be a $500,000 property. That could be $20,000 that they have to come up with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They're huge. These could be huge crushing numbers for your buyers. So just manage their expectation by step one, giving them a heads up that they might owe some money. And remember, guys, this only applies to new construction condos. In any other fact pattern, the seller should be giving the buyer the credit.
So a new construction house?
Good question. New construction house. Normally, what I think is the right answer on new construction houses is this paragraph 23. Let's put 3%, 2 to 3%, or 2.5% into escrow. And when the real number comes out, we true up. And what most sellers like to do is that they say, hey, we'll give you 110% plus an escrow. That's what most sellers do.
All right. I'm going to have to go through some recent files to see what actually happened there.
Yeah, and listen, I have no ego. If people have different solutions, I'm wide open to them. But when the drafters of like the 7.0 or 2.1, they're pretty good at spotting these things. So that's where they came up with those figures for. Cool.
Yes, I to clarify regarding new construction. When we say new construction, we're only talking about property that has been built like from the ground up, not like properties, right?
Like rehab properties?
Yeah, when we say new construction, we're talking about properties that have been built from the ground up, not necessarily rehab properties.
Good question. So rehab properties, the buyer will almost never pay the seller anything, but you have to be very, very cautious when you're doing those rehab properties. Like, during the big, between 2010 and 2010 to 2014, I was doing so many rehabs, right? And let me see. The county has the right to do what's, I don't have a slide in here. Here we go, kind of. They have a right to do an improvement reassessment, right? So normally, Cook County, it goes every 3 years, depending on the location, right? However, if you do like a gut rehab, the county has the right to do a property improvement reassessment, right? And if they do it, they use as evidence the contract price, right? So if you
Mm-hmm.
see a super low tax bill and then you got some super high contract price, you got to let your buyer know, like, hey, listen, this thing could adjust. The county could come in and do an improvement reassessment and really hit you guys with that.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And there is a part of the contract that the seller is supposed to check off and acknowledge if there was, there's 4 questions in the contract. Something about,
good question. So here we go. You're looking at paragraph 22, right? So paragraph 22, the real ones that you're going to look for is, you're going to look for this part right here. So what my co-counsel over here is bringing up is line 297. But the thing is, if you guys know that this thing is a rehab, if you know it's a gut rehab, like, just have a gut instinct that, hey, if this thing's super low, just know that one day that this can kick right back in. Okay?
Okay.
That's a good call, co-counsel. Appreciate that.
No problem.
Any questions?
Can we have a sidebar?
Yeah. What, did you have a sidebar comment?
No, I was gonna order a vodka on the rocks.
God bless you. God bless you. God bless you.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
Okay. The final thing I want to talk to you about is property tax appeals. Now, right now, property tax appeals is a god dang mess because everything is shut down, right? And if you're dealing with residential is not rocket science. If you're dealing with commercial properties, you probably want to hire an attorney. If you're dealing with residential, I generally tell people don't hire an attorney. You can figure it out on your own unless there's something really goofy, right? And it's like a one-page document that you go in there every time they have an appeal process. There's timings for each neighborhood, and you just fill it out yourself. I do it myself every time I have the ability to. Every time I have the ability to go contest it, right? Now, the only thing is, if it falls under these two, which it very rarely does for residential, you got to hire a lawyer, and they're going to charge you 1/3 of potential savings for however many years. But if you're just at this level, you can kind of do it yourself. And the property tax appeal. Remember in the very beginning when I was walking you guys through this equation. The thing that we're appealing is this: whatever the assessed value is. The assessed value is what the assessor thinks it is, and who knows how they come up with their number. As all of you guys, as everybody on this call knows, they were using Zillow estimates to come up with some of their figures. Joe, how accurate are some of those estimates?
Not very accurate. They can
Not very accurate.
Is 10, 15% off.
Yeah, so those things are suspicious at best, right? And the county has come out saying that they were using those estimates for these taxes, so for the assessed value. So just make sure that, in your value proposition to your clients, just make sure that you're kind of, doing a quick check on the assessed value to make sure that they're in line. Okay, guys?
Yep.
Hey, guys, this was a smaller class, and I moved pretty quickly here just because there was only a couple of us, and I wanted to give kind of give detailed attention here. I'm done with content. Do you guys have any questions before we wrap up?
Yes, I have a quick question. Going back to the example that we did where for the senior exemptions.
Okay.
And if they had no exemptions, and basically if the buyer is coming in and they're financing through a lender,
yep.
If the senior exemptions is 0, and for the PITI, the taxes that the lender is applying to the monthly payment, those taxes are basically going directly to escrow, or I'm just trying to get an understanding of if there are zero taxes under that property and everything was filed correctly, how would that work?
Good question. Let's get. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Let's pretend you're working with a buyer, and I'll give you a real fact pattern that I just did right now.
Okay.
So there was a property on Sheridan that the sales price was this 125K, right? That was the purchase price. It was a condo on Sheridan. Well,
Okay.
the taxes were zero. And that was because there was a senior freeze and a senior exemption, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, earlier, we said step one, we said that generally speaking, it's the taxes, the worst case scenario on taxes is 2% of the purchase price. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay, so this is what the lender thinks the taxes is. This is 2%, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what they think the taxes are, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to, because their requirements are going to make them escrow for that. You're with me so far, right?
Right.
So they're going to escrow for that. But assuming the seller filed all the tax stuff right, the real tax bill is zero. You're with me so far, right?
Yes.
So when the tax bill comes out, and if that's correct, then the lender will have a $2,500 surplus in the escrow account. You're with me?
Yes.
Then the buyer could either ask for a refund or roll it over.
Oh, okay.
So they either ask for a refund or roll it over. I tell most buyer to ask for the refund.
Got it. Okay.
You follow that?
Yes.
So it's a good question, and it's going to be heavily contested because these seniors, guys, I've done more senior transactions this year than the entire prior 13 years of my career because there's just so many baby boomers who are downsizing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, when we do this, they're fighting for every dime because for most people, this is their last asset. So they're really fighting for every dime.
Mm-hmm.
So they're really fighting for a 0% proration. So you just got to be cognizant that the lender's they're going to require that because if
Right.
they
Okay.
resell it on the secondary market, they need it.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
So
That makes sense.
for the most part, 105 and 110 will take care of you during non-reassessment years. During reassessment years, you should use like that special equation that I showed you,
Mm-hmm.
right? If during non-reassessment years, you want to use this special equation. Let's call it assessed value time, the new assessed value times tax rate times state equalizer times 110. That's what you should do during reassessment years. And if you're dealing with new construction condos, you just got to give your people the heads up that there's going to be this 2%. And if you do it wrong, guys, your buyer is going to show up and their closing cost is going to be 4% higher than they thought it was going to be. And it really is painful to people. And then when I break it down for them, they're none too happy when they find out about this later.
And Don, that 4%, it's really a conversation with the lender to say, hey, it's already being collected.
That is correct. The lender, and most lenders have become like, what's a politically correct way of saying this? Robotic. Thank you for saying they're being robotic and they're not actually reading and distinguishing when it's a new construction contract, right? And when it's a new construction condo contract, they need to check if the seller is collecting 2%.
Hey, jumping back to the overpayment of taxes, the city doesn't automatically refund that over. You have to ask for that.
You got to go ask for it. And it's the county, not the city.
I'm sorry, yes.
So, and as a heads up, Lightfoot has come out and said, if they can't balance that budget, she's going to attack the real estate taxes.
Yep.
So right now it's 7%, but God knows what it's going to be, because to that budget, that hole in the budget is pretty big.
Okay. Awesome, Don. Very insightful. And even for a seasoned agent, there's still things to learn.
And listen, I really appreciate all you guys doing this. I know it's kind of a boring subject matter, but if you get this one thing wrong, the consequences are so dramatic. I just texted you guys all my my email address. Shoot me an email and I'll send you the PowerPoint just so you can have it if you need to do like a quick like walkthrough of it. And yeah, if you guys ever need anything, I'm here for you. And thank you for the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.